Our first speaker today is Josh Stein, who has been North Carolina's Attorney General since 2017. He grew up in Chapel Hill and previously served as a state senator and Senior Deputy Attorney General in the North Carolina Department of Justice. Please join me in giving a warm Wilmington welcome to Josh Stein.
Perfect, Rob. Appreciate your name. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you, Rob, for having me. Thank you to the Wilmington Business Journal for hosting us. Spence, literally the last question my wife asked me when I left last night is, why the hell do you want this job? So you are prescient. I want to thank all the business leaders who are here this morning, and thank you for what you do. You create jobs, you take risks, you innovate, and you help to make the Cape Fear region one of the most desirable places in this nation to live. And we, as North Carolinians, appreciate you. I'm Josh Stein, your Attorney General and the Democratic nominee for governor. I have a question for you all, even though I'm pretty sure I know the answer before I ask it, but I'm going to ask anyway. How many of you folks, like me, love North Carolina? Are we not blessed to be from this place? Home to friendly and good people, home to remarkable natural beauty, just go outside this building, home to some of the finest educational institutions in the world, home to small businesses and Fortune 500 companies. Heck, we are home to the best barbecue and basketball in the nation. I grew up in Charlotte and then in Chapel Hill. My wife Anna grew up in Greenville and then in Winston, and we raised our 3 kids in Raleigh. They all went to North Carolina public schools, just like Anna and I did. North Carolina is home, and we pray that our kids and grandkids and your kids and grandkids also want to call North Carolina home. I am running for governor because I love our home state, and I believe in the promise of North Carolina, that if you work hard, where you come from should never limit how far you can go. That our kids and grandkids should enjoy a better and brighter future than we've had. That every North Carolinian has a fair shot at prosperity, getting a good paying job or starting a small business everywhere in North Carolina, including small town North Carolina. So we have to make sure that the economy works for everyone, and that real economic opportunity is more broadly distributed across this state. It means investing in broadband, water and sewer, roads and railroads, ports and airports, and yes, bridges. That's how we keep North Carolina moving. We have to address the high cost of living, especially housing, and cut taxes for middle and working class families. All kids should be able to get a good education, from early childhood pre-K through community college and university, so that they can succeed whether they go to college or they start their career. Strengthen career and technical education and apprenticeship programs, because while college is right for many people, it's not right for every person. And someone should not have to go to college to provide for his or her family. And we must support our educators. It is long past time teachers got a real pay raise in this state. Folks shouldn't have to worry about the safety of their loved ones when they're at work or at worship, at school, or at play. We should all be able to live, work, and raise our families in safe neighborhoods and safe communities. We have to address violent crime, tackle the fentanyl crisis, and help local law enforcement agencies recruit and retain well-trained officers. Every North Carolinian should be able to get good health care, no matter where they live or how much money they earn. It took about a decade of hard work by thousands and thousands of people, including many of you, certainly including our governor, Roy Cooper. But in December of last year, we expanded Medicaid in North Carolina. Already more than 450,000 of our neighbors have health insurance today who did not in December. It was a bipartisan victory for North Carolina. And when we can bring people together across our differences to come up with real solutions to real problems, there is no limit to what we can achieve here in North Carolina. That's how I've tried to serve as your Attorney General. To combat the opioid crisis, my team and I led a national bipartisan coalition of state attorneys general to take the big opioid drug companies to court, and we're winning. More than $50 billion. North Carolina's share, nearly $1.5 billion. New Hanover County's share, $35 million. Nearly every dollar to help people who are struggling with addiction. We are fighting for survivors of sexual assault, like a young teacher here in Wilmington who was assaulted in her home nearly 30 years ago. The case went cold because her rape kit had never been tested, just like thousands and thousands of others across this state, more than any other state in the country. It was absolutely unacceptable. We attacked the problem, and in April of this year, we announced that we have eliminated the backlog of untested kits in this state. Again, a bipartisan victory for the people of North Carolina. Already more than 100 arrests have been made so far, and that woman's attacker, District Attorney Ben David's office ensured that that person is now in jail for the next 20 plus years. Thank you, Ben. We're fighting for people whose drinking water has been poisoned by polluters. I've taken DuPont and Chemours to court for discharging Gen X and other PFAS chemicals from its Fayetteville Works plant into the beautiful Cape Fear River. We also helped to negotiate what was the largest excavation of coal ash in the history of the United States, 80 million tons. And then we won a $1.1 billion settlement with Duke Energy about paying for that cleanup that will lower the power bills for every customer of Duke in the state of North Carolina. Putting people first. That's what government service is supposed to be about. That is what I've done as Attorney General, and it's what I will do as your next governor. We have so many good things going for us in North Carolina. 2 years running, #1 state for business. Our entrepreneurs, our talented workforce are powering our state forward. But past performance is no guarantee of future success. Other states hunger for what we are doing here in North Carolina. We have to remain focused on the fundamentals. Strong public schools, good infrastructure, accessible and affordable health care, and safe communities. And we have to steer clear of the job-killing culture wars. Christopher Chung, the CEO of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, recently said about his concern about these culture war legislation impacting people's desires to open and grow businesses here in North Carolina and come here to work in our state. And I share his concern because it's bad for people and it is bad for business. We know this. We've seen this before. HB 2 cost this state billions of dollars in economic activity. We've been down the road. It is a dead end. And yet my opponent, Mark Robinson, to this day says, quote, "We were right about HB 2. I could not disagree anymore. This November, the voters are going to have an incredibly stark choice between two competing visions. As I laid out earlier, ours is forward-looking and welcoming. Fundamentally, it is about opportunity. Opportunity to succeed no matter who you are or where you're from. My opponent, Mark Robinson's vision, is one of division and hate. It is about fighting these job-killing culture wars. He says truly awful things about people, human beings. Calls public school teachers wicked people. Says people who work in the film industry are demons. Gay people are filth and even worse. Says women are not called to lead. Says Martin Luther King is a communist and the civil rights movement crap. A self-described conspiracy theorist, He casts doubt on the Holocaust and questions publicly whether 9/11 and Pearl Harbor were inside jobs. It's not just what he says, it's what he would do. He wants to slash public school funding. He wants to make it harder for people to vote. He wants to abolish the Affordable Care and Medicaid expansion. He says he wants to ban abortion for any reason because women were not responsible enough to keep their skirts down. Those are his words. Friends, being governor is not performative outrage. It is a real job. It's an important job. It is a hard job. And the stakes for our families, our neighbors, our community, and our future are real. We need to hire someone with the experience, skills, and temperament to do that job and do it well. And I hope to earn your support and your vote so that together we can build a North Carolina that is safer, stronger, and more prosperous for everyone. Thank you so much for having me this morning, and I look forward to our conversation. Thank you.
If you have a question, please text it in. First question is Table 7, Stephen Hill.
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you for coming down and speaking with us today. We do appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
My question revolves around healthcare and the workforce in healthcare. The UNC Shep Center has done a study that basically predicts crisis level deficiencies in the workforce across several different positions. And as well, if you merge that with the current report that came out recently from Forbes that ranks North Carolina the highest and most expensive place for healthcare in the country, what are your views on that, and what are your ideas to combat that issue?
Thank you. Yeah, the cost of healthcare is a major concern. You all need to be able to afford the healthcare expenses for your workers. And having more nurses, having more doctors obviously helps us to keep costs lower. And I like that you quoted the Shep Center because my mother worked at the Shep Center for about 20 years. So I'm gonna go back and report that they're doing good work still. We need to help get more nurses into the work stream. That means making it less expensive for folks to get community college degrees. We are having a shortage of community college nursing instructors across this state because it's so much more lucrative to actually be a nurse than it is to teach nurses. So we need to make sure that community colleges have the flexibility to raise the pay of instructors in hard to fill positions in critical industries like healthcare. But we have to look at healthcare holistically. When you look at what drives healthcare expenses, you got drug costs. So we want there to be innovation in our pharmaceutical industry. We have great innovators all across the state, one of the best states for pharmaceuticals and biotech in the country. But what we cannot ever have is companies colluding with each other and setting prices. So I've taken about 2 dozen pharmaceutical companies to court for doing just that, raising illegally the cost of healthcare. I'm very concerned about the driving cost of healthcare from health systems. What is happening too frequently is large systems are gobbling up smaller hospitals, and when they do, too often, costs go up and quality goes down. And right now, the authority of the Attorney General's office is not as strong as it should be to review these mergers. So I've been working on a bipartisan basis in the Senate with Senator Bergen and Senator Mayfield to come up with legislation to strengthen the review authority of the Office of Attorney General so that we can review these and scrutinize them to make sure that they're actually in the best interest of folks. One important accomplishment that will help lower healthcare costs for everybody was expanding Medicaid. Because when folks have healthcare insurance, they can actually go to the doctor when they're sick or go for a primary care checkup and not wait until they reach a crisis and go to the emergency room, which, as we all know, is the most expensive way to deliver healthcare in our system. So kudos to everybody for helping us expand Medicaid. It's going to take us a little time to see the benefits of that. You know, we had more rural hospitals shutter since 2010 than almost any state in the country. And unfortunately, it's very hard to bring those back. But Medicaid expansion is going to help strengthen struggling rural hospitals. We have to build on it. We have to focus on more ways to get access. One important technology that we actually saw a real explosion during COVID was telemedicine. It allows for people who live in rural areas where often there is not a single psychiatrist in that county to be able to get health care from folks in other parts of the state. So there are positive trends that are existing, and we have to help those flourish, and we have to keep an eye on the drivers of cost. Thank you.
Next question is Steve Unger, table 50.
If possible, would like you to address the possible expansion of passenger rail in the state of North Carolina and what role it might have in economic development.
Yeah, when I talked about the need to ensure that there is economic opportunity more broadly distributed across the state, rail gives us a great opportunity to make that happen. We need broadband. If you think about what you need in your businesses to succeed, if you don't have high-speed broadband, you're not going to make it. If you don't have a high-quality healthcare system, you're not going to be able to attract good employees. If you don't have good schools to educate the kids, again, you're going to have a lot of difficulty getting good people to come work for you. And the problem is when it's both a problem and a benefit. In North Carolina, our population is fairly well distributed among medium-sized cities, not huge cities. We don't have the Atlanta, we don't have the St. Louis or the Kansas City. We've got a lot of more regional, big-sized cities. And so that actually affords real opportunity for commuter rail. If we could get commuter rail between Fayetteville or Wilson and Raleigh, that opens up opportunity to people who want to live in their hometowns, but for whom there is not the right employment opportunity. And then if we can get rail from Wilmington to Raleigh, that just opens up an incredible flow of people to come here for weekends or be able to live and work. The number of trains that are going between Raleigh and Charlotte every year or two is increasing because the demand is there. Because you ride on a train, it's a comfortable experience. You're able to work. You're not stressed out. You're not worrying about somebody coming and hitting you on I-40. So I think there is real opportunity for rail to enhance the quality of life for people and economic opportunities. And then obviously we want to be able to get goods from Wilmington ports and Morehead City ports into the country and from the country into those ports. And rail plays a good role in that as well. Thank you for the question.
Next question is Brandon, table 25.
The question is, with the threat of DEI being dissolved around the state, where do you see diversity, equity, and inclusion in business and education?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about this reaction that's going on because I firmly believe that when you have a full range of perspectives around the table, people who've lived all kinds of different experiences in their lives, you get a better decision at the end of the day. I have seen that at my office. The Department of Justice is more diverse today than it has ever been in its history in terms of number of women, in terms of number of African American men, African American women, Native American men, Native American women, Asian men, Asian women, Latino men, Latino women. Look around this room. This is a very diverse room because we live in a very diverse state and we have so much potential to tap. We cannot afford to leave anyone's perspective behind. And I think that this hostility to the notion that inclusivity and diversity is somehow bad, it's as if people are scared to look honestly at our past, which we all know is imperfect. There's so much in our past as we approach July 4th to be incredibly proud of. I mean, the first country to stand on the principle that all people are created equal and that the government exists by the consent of the governed. Those were radical, crazy ideas in 1776, and those ideas were not true back then. Ask black folks, ask women, ask Native Americans, ask religious minorities. But because those words were in our chartering documents, they gave us something to aspire to. And essentially the political history of this country is trying to get to that more perfect place. And we're not there. We have so many real problems, and people just want to put their head in the sand and pretend like there aren't issues that need to be put on the table and talked about. And so this hostility concerns me gravely, and as governor, I will speak out against it.
Next question's from Tyler, table 29.
Good morning, thank you. So I believe we're in the era of polytainment when it comes to division, when it comes to Democrats and Republicans. And I think that's the reason why so many people around the whole entire nation is looking at North Carolina right now. I think they're hoping for that divisive and division to come out of this race. How can you show us that that is not going to happen and North Carolina is better than that? And how are you going to do that during the race and also if you become leader?
Well, I won't sugarcoat it. It's going to be a tough race. It's going to be a hard-fought race. There's already ads up there mischaracterizing my record, and we're in June. so y'all strap in. But here's what I can say. I have been doing public service for nearly a quarter century, and I try to do it the same way and the right way, which is to have an open mind, open ears, and an open door. There are tough issues, and there is no monopoly on the truth in either party or in any one person. Life is too complicated and too nuanced for that. So what you need to do is listen to other people's perspectives and figure out how can we address that legitimate concern, which is not central to what I'm trying to get done, but is legitimate and would have an unintended consequence. So let's make this modification that gets me nearly everything I wanted, but at the same time doesn't create this problem over there. That's how you solve policy problems. It is hard, complicated work. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes a willingness to listen. It's how I have served to date. It's how I am governing as Attorney General, and it's how I will govern as the governor of North Carolina. And people get information from so many sources. You cannot control where people get information. All you can try to do is do the right thing, and that's what I try to do.
Next question is table 39, Catherine.
So I deeply respect the Business Journal, and I'm about to do something that you just asked me not to do. But I sent in a question that wasn't answered, and then I sent in a question about the bridge, because I know that that's something that everybody wants to focus on. So they, in the text messages, said, please ask the question about the bridge. That's not what's really important for your role. There's other people in office that could take care of the bridge. Our governor is the direct line of defense for federal government overreach. Mark Robinson has a military background. Mr. Stein?
Let's ask your question. You can ask both questions, but ask them and let them answer.
I'll ask the bridge question too. But my question to you, Mr. Stein, is how do you plan to protect our state from federal government overreach? And then my bridge question was, a lot of local city officials would like to lower the height of the bridge in order to save money on construction. But from a federal waterways regulation for the cargo ships that need to come in and out of our waterway to be able to get the imports and exports we need, how are you going to ensure that they keep the appropriate height of the bridge?
So just to make sure I understand, you want to make sure that the bridge meets the federal government's requirements to ensure transportation, but you want me to also answer how to address federal government overreach?
And what you plan to do from your personal experience, either emergency response or military background, to take care of our state. Yes.
North Carolina is one of the most military and veteran-friendly states in the country. We have more than 700,000 vets who live in North Carolina. They provide so much. 1 out of every 10 vets, small businesses, is owned by a vet. It's incredible. They have so much enterprise, they have so many skills, so much energy, so much public commitment. To have served in the military, you have to be willing to raise your hand and say, I'm willing to put myself on the line for other people and for ideals. It's really incredible, and we owe them every debt of gratitude. We launched Veterans for Stein in Fayetteville about 2 weeks ago, and we have to make sure that our Military and Veterans Affairs Department is doing every bit of outreach across the state so that veterans understand what benefits are available to them. So many veterans are qualified for veterans, but they don't even know they exist. And so those are obviously federal benefits. The state doesn't have them, but the state can help be a conduit and help them to access what's available to them. And then we also have to make sure that when the state is contracting, that we are giving credit to veteran status to give them every chance to succeed, because they've put their lives on the line for us. It's time for us to make sure we have their back when they come back into civilian service. And as to the bridge, I really don't have the technical information to be able to opine on what the nature of the height should be, but I did call the Secretary of Transportation and urge them to work overtime to get everything they could do to get the bridge done as quickly as possible, because I know that it is a major, not only inconvenience on people's personal lives, but on productivity for the region. And so I look forward to being governor so I can work on those kind of nettlesome issues down the road.
So we've got time for one more question and then a quick wrap up. Last question for you will be from Angela, table 51.
Good morning. My question is, according to the North Carolina Housing Coalition, the average middle-class person needs to make $29.13 per hour to afford to live in this county. But the minimum wage in North Carolina remains at $7.25 per hour, creating a huge gap for mid-level pay. How will you address the minimum wage and wage growth in our state overall?
Yeah, the issue about living affordability is real for so many people. And there are two ways. People have a balance sheet just like businesses do. It's what money are you taking in and what money are you spending. And we want folks to maximize what their income can be. I am appalled that North Carolina's minimum wage has not been increased in 16 years, $7.25. It needs to be increased, and it needs to be indexed to inflation so that it does not lose value immediately upon enactment. But we also have to try to get more money into the pockets of working folks. That's why after the primary I rolled out my working families tax cut, which is to put more money into the pockets of working and middle class families, lift more children out of poverty, and in the process stimulate local economies. Because one thing about working and middle class folks is they spend their money locally. They spend their money. They don't invest it wherever it may go. So we need to be focused on getting more money on the revenue side, and then we have to do everything we can to control costs. There are things, the first question was about healthcare. What can we do to try to keep healthcare costs down? Hospital prices, drug prices. Those are things that we can work on as a policy level as a state, and I will be focused on that. There are things we can do to lower housing costs. North Carolina was the third fastest growing state in the country last year. So many people are moving here because the secret is out. I mean, we've got it going on here in North Carolina. People want to be here, but we're not able to construct as many units as quickly as people are coming. And supply and demand tells us that if the demand increases but the supply does not, costs go up. So we have to help encourage local governments to promote the construction of more units. And when I say units, I mean single family units. I mean duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, condominiums, apartments, special needs housing for veterans who need assistance, or homeless people, or people who are overcoming years of addiction. These are all things that we can be doing as a state to reduce the barrier, the cost of housing on folks. And then the question about trains earlier. The more transportation modalities we have, the more we can lower the costs of moving people from A to B and open up people's opportunities across the state.
Thank you. Do you want to do a quick wrap up and then we will go on to the next candidate?
Thank you.